And now, it's time for Talkin' New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network of programming. And here's your hosts, Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike.
And we're coming at you from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for Talkin' New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike. And the show's being brought to you in part by the Whitehall Athletic Club. Check them out, www.whitehallathletic.com. And speaking of the Whitehall Athletic Club, there's a big show, August 24th. It's a boxing event. Check it out. Get your tickets now, www.whitehallathleticclub.com. And joining me, like he always does, my main man, Brooklyn Mike. What's up, brother?
Good morning, brother. How are you today?
Not too bad, not too bad. Talking New York sports. Let's kick it off. You know, one of the things that we've talked about when we were getting ready to do this show was I know that you like the format of the Talking Boxing with Billy C show with the emails from listeners and stuff like that. Well, we got a couple. We got a couple in the queue here that I wanted to read and have you comment on. First, this was from Bazooka Ike. He says, Billy, I'm a proud Midwesterner. I just want to say that I despise New York sports teams. I'm a Jeremy Lin fan, though, and he made me want to watch the Knicks for the first time since the mid-1990s. I also like Carmelo Anthony and Tyson Chandler, too. What's your thoughts, Mike?
Well, first off, it upsets me that he hates all New York sports.
Well, we could agree with him with a couple of the teams.
But I find it funny that he likes both Jeremy Lin and Carmelo Anthony because those two don't like each other. Or at least Carmelo couldn't stand the attention that Jeremy Lin got when he came to New York. And I'm sure he's very happy that Lin has decided to go to the Houston Rockets.
Well, he's got one other point. He says he wanted to know if Jim Leonard is still a New York Jet. He's from a hometown very close to my hometown. I guess we both got to give him the bad news that he's not, or at least he's not making a comeback after the second outage, is he? No,
it's he's going to try to. I'm sure he's going to. His agent's going to try to get him onto another team. He's only 29 years old, and he used to call the plays for us on the defense. But, the Jets went out and they got Lorangi, what's his name from Washington? My God, excuse me. And Jeremiah Bell from Miami Dolphins. So they're just getting stocked up in the safety position. They also drafted a 6th-round pick. It's also a free safety. So I think they've obviously parted ways with Sean Leonard. And, I mean, if you're a Jet fan, how could you not like Sean Leonard?
Jim Leonard,
I'm sorry, but that injury just took its toll last year, and the Jets decided to move on.
Yeah, and the thing with Jim, was that he was calling our defensive plays, and like I said last week with the Jets, and we'll get into the Jet talk a little bit later, but like I said last week with the Jets, they do stock up on that secondary, and I believe, and we're going to talk about the running back position and stuff like that a little bit later, but I believe a little too much. But anyway, let's hold those thoughts, because don't get us started on the Jets. Mikey and I we won't even talk about anything else. But I got one more. This is from Errol Jarrett. He says, it's good that Lynn's gone to Houston, and as a matter of fact, Mikey, we'll be talking about that first today. He says he's got a nice contract, and he's going to be able to play free. Let's see how he does. And he also goes on to say, I'm happy Jason Kidd is in New York. Kidd makes the other players better. In my opinion, I agree with this email 100%. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Kidd definitely makes the other players much better. And, listen, the Knick brass was very upset with Jeremy Lin, as you know, because of the way he went about the contract. He was originally offered a 4-year contract for $25 million from Houston, and the Knicks definitely could have matched that because they wouldn't have been a great hit against their salary cap. But they went back and renegotiated what his agent did and got him 3 years for $25 million. And you know what? To tell you the truth, but I don't see anything wrong with that. Make the money if you can make it. I think it's crazy that anybody is going to pay him $25 million when this guy's only started 25 games.
Well, that was our point, and first of all, I just want to thank Errol Jarrett for the email, and it's a great segue because I want to talk a little Knicks basketball right now, and we might as well kick it off with Lynn. He is the big story. He did decide, in case you missed it, in case you guys are on another planet or something, he did decide to take the deal with Houston Rockets. And the Knicks had always said, we'll match it, but it ended up being a 3-year deal at $25 million. And when it comes to about the money, when it comes all about the money, you can't blame the kid. Although we alluded to it last week, Mike, I'm not so sure this kid is worth that much money. I mean, he plays 1 year in the NBA. Yes, he made an impact on a team most of the time, but on the other times he stunk up the court. And it's like a baseball player, that comes into the league, and if he's a pitcher, the batters have to adjust to him, or vice versa. If he's a hitter, the pitchers got to get used to him and stuff before they get his number, so to speak. And I think that might have been the case with Jeremy Lin. Do you think Houston overpaid?
I absolutely do. I mean, well, they're taking a risk. Let's put it that way. Like you said, 25 games, and the 25 games that he started, he averaged over 18 points. So there's no doubt that he could score. Problem with Jeremy Lin is that he's an inconsistent shooter. He gives the ball up way too many times for a point guard. It's just a risk on their part, and I think that he does make other players better on the court. There's no doubt about that. But it's too much of a risk too soon, I think. And if the contract was 4 years, then I say, okay, why not 4 years? Because, I mean, as you know, Jim Dolan has no problem spending money. I mean, he's given us some foolish contracts over the years. Allen Houston, Stoudemire. But when you're talking about a third-year contract, which would have paid him $14 million, and then they would have had to pay like another $16 million towards the luxury tax. So you're talking $30 million for 1 year to have Jeremy Lin on your team, and that's what Michael Jordan was getting. And you can't even say Michael Jordan and Jeremy Lin in the same sentence.
No. And the one thing about the decision for Jeremy Lin to take the Rockets offer is it's a foregone conclusion that he's the starter, and you didn't really know that with the Knicks, and although I think they were willing to invest the money in him and see what was going to happen with him, obviously bringing Jason Kidd over was an indication of he was definitely splitting some time with him. Is it a good move? I think it's a good move personally for the Knicks, and I think it's a good move for Houston. In terms of a fit, but in the long run, who made the best move here, in your opinion?
I'd say the Knicks, because they could use that money elsewhere down the road. Like I said, the $30 million for 1 year, it's just outrageous money. And if he would have stayed with the Knicks, he would have been the starter, and Jason Kidd was coming in here to give him, to teach him, to be his mentor, to give him advice, to show him how to not turn over the ball. And Jason Kidd, his time would have been limited. I mean, he's 40 years old, and he would have played maybe 12 to 18 minutes, and Jeremy would have started. But they got back Ray Felton, who's a competent point guard. It's and I think chemistry-wise, for Carmelo Anthony, he's not going anywhere. I think it's better for Carmelo because, like I said, he was really upset about that the contract that they offered, and he would have been, livid if the Knicks actually decided to match that contract. And you don't want problems in the locker room, so to speak. And I think it just would have caused more than it would have been good. So that being said, I do think that the Knicks made the right move. You're going to miss the guy? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's exciting. I think he's going to get better. And I hope he does get better. He's young. He's only 24 years old. And, it's good for both, but I think the Knicks made the right decision in not matching the contract.
Well, let me ask you this. The Knicks, I agree with the financial decision and basically value. I mean, not only from a dollars and cents point of view, but what Jeremy Lin is going to bring to the team. Did they bring? In my opinion, let me rephrase it. In my opinion, they brought Jason Kidd over there to work with Jeremy Lin, and it almost seems like they had the intention all along to keep Lin. Does this change anything for them? Do they shift gears, or do you think maybe they knew deep down they weren't going to be able to retain Lin, and they were ready for this move?
No, actually, I think the opposite. I think that after hearing the 4-year contract for $25 million, the word out of Madison Square Garden, the Knicks they were all ready to match it. I think they wanted him here. There's no doubt about that. But you have to draw a line in the sand, so to speak. And once they went back and renegotiated with Houston and came up with 3 years at $25 million, that's when the Knicks said nay, as my friend Billy C says. But I think they're going to move on. And like I said, Ray Felton is a more than capable point guard. So it is what it is, Billy. We can't bring it back. We can't change it. And he goes to Houston. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, you know what? See you later, Jeremy Lin. It was fun while it lasted. He made the headlines in the sports pages in New York. There's no question about that. He was fun. I personally don't think it's gonna carry over. At least the odds don't look like it will, because of his lack of top college playing as well. So I don't know. I think it was maybe I'm totally wrong. I'm not as well versed in basketball, so maybe I'm totally wrong. But I agree with you. I think the Knicks are going to end up in the long run with the better side of the deal, so to speak. And speaking of the sides of the deal with the Knicks, they did sign Jason Kidd. We were talking about it. It was fresh off the news pages last week. And then immediately after our show, the next fresh thing about Jason Kidd was he got popped for DWI. What's your thoughts?
That's you know what? You just shake your head. I mean, yeah, like you and I were just talking about it last week, and that very same day, he gets busted for DWI. I mean, look, he's a 40-year-old man. He's not a 22-year-old rookie. He's been in this league 20 years, 18 years, whatever it is. I just don't get it with these athletes. And the thing is, with NBA players as well as NFL players, they get free car service. Free.
I was just going to ask you, is it the same in the NBA? They get it too?
It's the exact same in the NBA. If you're at a party, he was in the Hamptons. It doesn't matter where you are. There is a phone number you can call up and say, hey, it's Jason Kidd. I've had one too many. Come drive me home. Billy, if I had that opportunity, I'd be calling these guys, oh, it's Brooklyn Mike. I want to go get some milk and bread.
Right. I had a shot.
I don't want to drive.
Right.
I'll use that. I use that car service so much they'll take it out of my contract. That's how much I would use it.
It's funny you say that. I know some of the teams have it's free of charge. I know the New York Jets, as a matter of fact, they don't have to pay anything for it. But I think some of the other teams, the players do have to pay for it. But even so, you're making the money that these guys make, especially in hoops. It's just shocking. And I think you made the most important point. Here he is, 40 years old. And he doesn't make the call. It's ridiculous. And he apologized through the press and everything else. But still, I mean, here's a guy you bring in as a mentor, and what does he do? He wasn't even, I mean, the ink wasn't even dried on the contract, and he gets popped for having one too many to drink.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, you're mentoring Jeremy Lin on how to mix a cocktail? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, that's not why we brought Jason Kidd in, and like I said, you just scratch your head. I mean, look at that. Look at the rookie that they brought in Jacksonville. He got popped twice. The kid Blackman, the wide receiver, he's highly touted, very talented wide receiver, and he gets popped not once but twice. Once in college, and then he goes on record and he says, I made a bad decision. This will never happen again. I'm going to learn from this. he gets drafted, and within a week, he's busted again, and he blew like a 24, like a .24, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's not a little drunk. That's like intoxicated. That it's like almost comatose.
That's like that's like the way I feel after a few too many scotches. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my man Dax. He's a real important part, as you know, of the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. He's in the chat room right now, so and he's totally supporting us. He's been totally honest with me. Hey, I'm not a sports fan unless they're fighting each other. That's it. But I do have some boxing news later on, Dax. So you're gonna have to stick around for that. But Brooklyn Mike, I just wanted to give a shout out there. But didn't one of our rookie Jets get busted too for DWI when he first in the beginning as soon as they signed him?
Rookie Jets. I mean, I remember Braylon Edwards last year, which was the same thing. That's how I knew about the car service.
No, this was this year. This was right after. You know what? I'm mistaken. I'm talking about the same guy you did because the reports I heard were they were comparing it to the Jets and how the Jets have the service. Well, I got one more basketball thing to talk about, and this is the re-signing, I guess, of Chris Humphries for the Nets. What's your thoughts on him? I mean, he's a guy that was a decent player. I mean, they signed him to a 2-year, $24 million deal. Slightly under 14 points a game. 11 rebounds. But the big thing with him is he's averaged double-doubles in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a good player. And along with Brook Lopez and that starting backcourt, you and I touched on this last week. It's going to be that's going to be a good team. I think, as well as you do, that team is going to be the team in New York this year.
Yeah, and they're it's almost like they're quietly doing it. I mean, this re-signing of Humphries. Now, last year I think it was he signed a 1-year deal, right? I mean, that's why they had to re-sign him. I'm not up on the contract that he had. I know the new contract, but he was with the team last year, right?
Yeah. The big headlines that he made last year was his 72-day marriage to Kim Kardashian. But yeah, he was with us, and they made the owner, Prokhorov, made it a point of, they went hard after Dwight Howard, but once that fell through, he just locked everybody up. I mean, the guy has no problem spending money, and he wants to bring a winner to the Nets, especially, opening their brand new the Barclays Arena in downtown Brooklyn. So this guy is in it to win. And, Humphries, Lopez, and this backcourt that we have, it's going to be a lot of fun over in Brooklyn this season. I
there's no doubt. And I want why we talking about Dwight Howard. He's not really signed, sealed, and delivered anyway yet. I mean, and I read rumors that he's not totally done with the possibility of coming to Brooklyn. Is that still open or what?
Well, I guess the slight possibility is there, but okay, but what do you do with Brook Lopez now? I mean, then you're going to have to start mixing and matching and trading. I mean, look, we said this last week because this guy's a head case because he caused this problem by not opting out of his contract with the Orlando Magic. All he had to do was declare free agency, and he could have gone to the Brooklyn Nets, no questions asked. But he came up with this whole thing about loyalty and, this is where I want to play. And a month later, he says, you know what, I want to go to Brooklyn. I mean, so he causes his own problem. What I've heard lately is that it's between Houston and Los Angeles. I think he's crazy not to go to Los Angeles because that gives him the best opportunity to win a championship with Kobe and now with the Steve Nash that they signed, who's probably one of the best point guards in the NBA. So I think he's crazy if he doesn't go to LA and play with them instead of going to Houston and playing alongside Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, Steve Nash, him and Jason Kidd. I mean, if you weren't following hoops for a little bit, you would have thought for sure both of those guys would have been retired by now. But you look at Dwight Howard in the situation with the Orlando Magic, and should he stay? Should they decide to because they are in a total rebuilding mode right now, and should he stay? I mean, how do you function there? I mean, with all the BS that went on, all during the season and now still, I mean, how do you put it behind you? In my opinion, I don't know if you can. What do you think?
Well, here's the problem: is that number one, he's coming off surgery. Okay, so he has to show that the surgery had no effect on him. If his heart isn't into playing, people are going to say, oh, well, maybe it's the surgery and he's lost something. Just like, remember Stoudemire had his back surgery, and Stoudemire is definitely not the player he used to be. So he put himself in a position now where he has to perform and show everybody, look, the surgery went well. There's no ill effects from the surgery, and I'm healthy and I'm playing hard. I'm ready to win. But then again, like you said, how do you put all this behind you? I mean, he doesn't want to be there. They don't want him there. The best thing for him that this trade goes through before the start of the season. If it doesn't, it's just it's not a good situation for the team, for him, and actually for the fan base. Because you watch, you're Orlando Magic fan. You watch this guy say, "I want to be here," then I don't want to be here. What kind of a reception is he going to get when he steps onto the court? And I'm guessing it's not going to be favorable.
No, if he was in New York, forget about it. I mean, he couldn't get on the court. I mean, maybe they're more forgiving in Florida, but I don't know. And the longer it drags out, the harder it's going to be. And then you end up with a situation. If he gets back on the court, let's say in Orlando. You drag it out, or even if he gets traded to whatever team he ends up going to, the longer it goes on, the harder the adjustment's going to be, and the less impact he could possibly make. And all of that spells for problems with the fan base because the guy's not going for peanuts, so it's going to be a big money contract. It's going to be, something high profile in the news, all of that happy stuff. And then it's going to be looked upon as he's just not worth it. He's not performing the right way, and all that other stuff that goes along with those high-profile, big-money deals.
Right. I mean, and like you said, he has to play well because they're going to say, okay, it's his back or it's his attitude. Okay, and that's going to cause people to tread with caution when they're signing him, saying, oh, look what happened when he's unhappy. He's not going to put in 100%. And nobody wants a disgruntled player. Nobody wants that. They want somebody who is going to perform, go out there and give 110%. So, I mean, this guy just put himself in a terrible situation. I mean, look, I'm not crying for him because he's made money. He's going to make more money. And personally, the guy's an idiot in my eyes for doing this. But he somehow he has to right this ship. And he has to go out there and he has to perform because of those two things. One, you want to make sure it's not physical, and two, you got to show everybody it's not mental. It's not. I'm not going to pout. I'm not going to, even though I'm on Orlando, I don't want to be in Orlando. I'm not going to pout. I'm going to put in 110%. Look, let's put it this way: if he plays well and he goes out there and performs, the fans in Orlando, they're going to cheer. That's just the bottom line. Winning makes everybody happy. Regardless of what he said. Yeah, he might get booed as soon as he gets out there, but you know what happens. You start performing, people start clapping. I mean, look, take Jason Bay, okay? He gets booed when he gets announced, but if he hits a home run, what do the fans do? They applaud. So, when you play well, you're going to get rewarded. So this guy has to play well in order to, assure him a good contract. And to show other teams that he's physically fit and mentally fit.
No doubt. Hey, Mike, we're going to take a break. Check out the chat room during this break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. We'll be right back.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't...
Beat Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh? What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Time for another major in golf. This time it's across the pond for the Open Championship. What's at stake? That's next on Sports Shorts with me, the Sports Princess.
Want to put some wild into your weekend? Come to the all-new Mesquite Pro Rodeo. Corral seats start at just $12, and kids are always half price. Get your tickets at Kroger and save $5. This weekend, meet the rodeo legends. Tractor Supply sponsors the Neil Gay Cowboy Reunion. The city ends and the Wild West begins at cool air-conditioned Mesquite Arena, I-635 and Exit 4, 7:30 Friday and Saturday. Mesquite is the official rodeo capital of Texas.
Filled with tricky pot bunkers that you have to climb into, no less. This year's Open at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's in England is certain to be tough, even for the most seasoned professional golfer. Tiger Woods, who hasn't won a major in 4 years, is looking to pick up his 15th career title. The last American to win at Royal Lytham was David Duval in 2001. Should Woods win, it would be his 4th Open, the last back in 2006. The Americans and the Europeans and everybody else in between know that this is no walk in the park, and with rain expected, they'll need more than umbrellas and a good caddy to navigate this 7,086-yard course that rewards great ball striking and punishes the rest. Whoever wins the Claret Jug will no doubt be playing some target golf at this major. I'm the Sports Princess with Sports Shorts.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin' New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike show. Glad you could join us. Don't forget, check out www.whitehallathletic.com. Great athletic club to join in upstate New York. So if you're listening and you're in the New York City area, you got to get out of the smog, man. Go up to Whitehall Athletic Club. Enjoy all of the features and activities they got going on up there. Visit their website, www.whitehallathleticclub.com, for the latest stuff, including the big world title event we got going on August 24th. Chevelle, Fist of Steel Halbeck against Victoria Cisneros in the main event for the world junior welterweight title for the WIBA. So check that out, www.whitehallathleticclub.com. My main man's with me, Brooklyn Mike, and we were talking about some basketball before we went to break, Mikey, and I wanted to wrap up the basketball and talk a little bit about the Yankees. You know, I kind of hate them, but first and foremost, last week we talked about Reggie Jackson being banned from the clubhouse, and you said, I asked you, did you think it was going to be for a long time? And you said, I don't think so, and you were right because it didn't even last a week. He's allowed to return. He was at the game yesterday. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was just to show the people that were quote unquote outraged by his comments, which I still don't think they were that bad, but it was just to give him a little slap on the wrist. Look, Reggie Jackson is known for putting his foot in his mouth. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened with Reggie, and the Yankees just showed, okay, we'll reprimand him. And again, like we said, it was just going to last a week, maybe 2 weeks at tops. But they brought him back a lot faster, and it'll be put behind. But you and I spoke about that, and all he did was state a fact, and the fact is that Alex Rodriguez's numbers are going to be clouded by steroid use, and there's no doubt about that. And you and I, or anybody else in the media, on the radio, we all discuss who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's just something that we do. So why not? You don't think players discuss that? The only thing that I told you that I felt that was wrong is that it was bad timing on his part to talk about Gary Carter, because we just lost Gary, in February to brain cancer. And the other thing I disagreed about was his comment about Kirby Puckett not being in the Hall of Fame. I think without a doubt Kirby was a Hall of Famer. But other than that, Reggie is Reggie, as we say.
Kirby Puckett, I mean, just to comment on that, I mean, his career, he had the eye problems, right? Wasn't it? Didn't he start having eye problems or something?
Yeah,
didn't his career
exactly.
kind of get cut short, and he still had those numbers? So I would have to agree with you on that with Kirby Puckett. Plus, he made such an impact on the team. That when you start talking Hall of Fame and stuff. I was giving it some thought. Like we talked last week, and I asked you, is it all about the numbers and stuff? And basically you were like, yeah. I guess it is all about the numbers. I think which is more, I guess more related to how good a player is the MVP awards, because it's hard to always take. What typically happens is the MVP becomes the popularity guy, the guy that's the most popular on the most popular team. And I don't know if that's correct. Maybe the MVP should be the guy that makes the biggest impact on the least quality team. That's the most valuable player for that team. You know what I mean? That's
always been my argument, is that, MVP is most valuable. So just because, look, right now, with this kid Trout, as soon as this kid Steven Trout came up to the Angels just started winning. I mean, he has shown his value to this team. It's not about who has the most home runs, who has the highest batting average. It's about, what kind of spark plug you provide for your team to put them over the hump into the playoffs, or keep them relevant as September rolls around and you're getting closer to the playoffs. That's what an MVP is in my eyes. But it's always been about numbers, and you just see that the voting tends to lean that way. That's why guys like Albert Pujols and stuff are always winning MVP awards. But I agree with you. I think it's who gives the most value to their team.
Speaking about the Yankees, they've lost 2 games in a row right now, and they're still comfortably ahead. Nick Swisher got a freak injury yesterday. What's your thoughts on him? He says, no way are they going to put me on the DL. And I almost forgot that they have Andrew Jones, who's finally in his 30s. I mean, this kid, I always looked at him as being a young kid. He seemed like he was young for so long, but he's been around forever. He's 35 years old. And, I mean, how important is Swisher to the Yanks?
He's very important, especially since, Brett Gardner is not coming back because he's having season-ending elbow surgery. So Nick is very important. And also, let's not kid ourselves. This is the last year of Nick's contract. So he's playing for a contract. So he doesn't want to go out. He wants to, go out there, perform, and, like we're talking about Dwight Howard, show everybody here, I'm here to give 110% because he is in his contract here. But because, like I said, Gardner won't be back, he's very important to the team. And speaking of Gardner, my question to you is, do the Yankees go out and get Shane Victorino from the Phillies?
Well, the Yankees could afford him, that's for sure. They're right now. I mean, sitting on their loss, they're still, I think, 7.5 or at least 8 games in first place. They're comfortably ahead in the division. Money's not an object for the Yankees. I mean, if you ever get the opportunity to better your team, even if you are the Yankees, I don't see why you wouldn't. I think if you ask that same question for any other team but the Yankees, we could actually discuss it and evaluate the question. Put money into the mix, put the bench into the mix, put long-term plans into the mix. All of those things are null and void when you talk about the Yankees. So my question is, what do they do? What do they want to do? I mean, what do you think?
I think, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This team is 8 games up, and there's no stopping them. They've played without speed for the entire season, so they really haven't missed Brett Gardner. I wouldn't go out and get him if I was the Yankee brass. I mean, Andrew Jones and Raul Ibanez, they've combined for 24 home runs and 62 RBIs, and these are bench players. I mean, the New York Mets would kill to have these 2 guys on their team. So, Victorino, while he does bring speed, he has a .253 batting average, 8 home runs, 5 triples. He's 31 years old. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would stay pat if I was the Yankees. I think they're going to steamroll into the playoffs.
Yeah, there's no question about that, Mike. I mean, if anything, And even this is a reach. You know, if they were dying to open up the checkbook, if they're dying to get something, maybe a pitcher, maybe just to solidify the bullpen. But you know, Andy Pettit's going to come back. I mean, listen, this has been a blueprint for the Yankees for years, and this is one of the things that's always made me sick. You know, being a Mets fan and not being particularly too fond of the Yankees. You know, this is a team that constantly, especially like I said, over the last few years, over the last 10 years for that matter, you know, has been able to take and have their players get healthy at the right time, and even with this team. And like they did last year and the year before, you know, some of their key players get out. They just manage to just, you know, trudge along and get the, get through the season, so to speak. And all of a sudden they're on all cylinders for the playoffs. This year it's even going a step further where they're taking and looking better and better now. And it just seems like they're even going to get better as the season comes, you know, towards the playoff time.
They are going to get better, and like you said, it's about getting healthy towards the end of the season. As far as getting a pitcher, their bullpen is great. Sirianno is in his role where he's comfortable. He's a guy who comes in and closes out games. He's not a setup man, and that was his role when Mariano was there. But this guy, he saved 45 games for Tampa 2 years ago. He's in a role that he's comfortable, and they're just going to flourish into the playoffs, Billy. I mean, but when they get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Anything can happen in a playoff series. But now, you know what? Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
No, I can't disagree with you there. Speaking about being broke and not fixing it, last week I was asking you about the American League and some of the sleeper teams, and I said, I thought Oakland might have been a sleeper team, and you laughed at me, literally laughed at me, and said, no way, and forget about the fact that they just beat the Yankees twice in a row. I'm looking at the stats right now, and if I'm not mistaken, they're either in the wild card or one game out as we speak. I'm telling you, there's something about that team that they're just a gritty team, almost like the old Oakland A's when I was a kid and I used to follow them with pitchers like Vida Blue and that team. Not that they have that talent, but they just have some grit about them that I think I just think it took the beginning of the season to get going. I do still think that they're a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to admit when I'm wrong, especially to you, but yeah, I mean, they are a gritty team. And they are only a half a game out of the wild card. I just don't know if they're going to be able to sustain that for the rest of the season. I think Texas and LA are definitely, going to finish 1 and 2 in that division. LA should take the wild card, no problem. But, it's going to come down to, I believe, them and Detroit. So it's going to be close. I just think Detroit has a little better personnel, a little better pitching, and I think they're going to edge him out at the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, Detroit's coming on strong. We said that. We knew that they were going to be around. A lot of so-called experts are clearly picking Detroit to still be there. The Boston fans are loyal to that team, despite them not doing well, in the East. They, too, are still only 2 games out of a wild card spot. So, I mean, it's still wide open. I mean, there's no clear favorite over in the AL. Now, when you start talking about the NL, things are starting to become clear. And you and I spoke earlier in the week. And, I'm blaming you, man. I'm blaming you for the Mets. They've won 1 game in the last 7 since you said, don't worry about the Mets. The Mets are going to be fine. I said to you, Mike, do you think that this next series is going to be a make or break for the Mets? And you said, absolutely not, I think was your exact words. And they went 1 and 7. One win out of the last 7 games. They're now 8 games or 7.5 games out of first place. They're sinking deeper and deeper into the depths of a losing season. And who do we get to pitch today? We get the same guy, the only guy you were scared to death to have as in our pitching rotation. What's your thoughts, man?
Well, I don't think the season is over because they're 1-7, 1-6 in their last 7 games. And I blame you because I was the one thinking positive, but you were saying, oh, same old Mets. But that being said, they're only 4.5 games out of the wild card. I think the problem here is that we talked last week and we said that what the Mets do from now until the trading deadline is going to determine what Sandy Alderson does. And I think the Mets should have made a move before. While they were floating between 3 games out, 4 games out, that's when they should have made their move instead of just waiting and waiting and waiting. It just, to me, they're trying to wait as long as they can not to spend money. And Sandy also went on record this week saying they're not going to get a starter. They're not going to get a right-handed bat. They're going to stick with Jason Bay. But he did say they're looking at relief help, which look, Billy, that's the biggest problem that the Mets have. I mean, this team is second in batting. This team is second in 2-out base hits. They're a gritty team, just like you said with the Oakland A's. But he's not going to spend a lot of money, and he's got a plan. He's got this 4-year plan. We're in year 2 with Sandy. He doesn't want to alter what they set up for the next 2 years. So, he's not going to take any kind of risks. He's going to go, dumpster diving like he's done for the past 2 years and try to get, the best with the least amount of money spent. If he would have done this beforehand, we might not see this 1-6 record coming out of the All-Star break. And the Mets have always done this. They play so well, or the first half of the season, and then they flounder the second half. Last year, we blamed it on the West Coast trip, but this year they're not on the West Coast. They're in the East Coast, Atlanta, Washington, and now they're home against the Dodgers. So you can't blame travel on it.
Well, let me just comment on something. Number one, listen, I don't care what state your team is in going into a season. It was all very well publicized about the Mets and the financial woes and stuff, and as that kind of cleared itself up, you got to keep that in the back of your mind. Number one. Number two, if the GM has a plan, a 4-year plan. And that plan is to rebuild, in lieu of the fact of lack of funds or whatever. When do you abandon that plan and being so conscious of money, when you're in a race, or they were in a race? And the only other part of my comment here I want to make is that it's not just losing 6 out of 7 games, Mike. It's losing 6 out of 7 games against the 2 teams that you're fighting with. You lose a whole series against Washington. You win the 1 game against Washington. The Braves take care of you. Now you're playing a Dodger team at home where your ace, so to speak, Santana gets smacked around a little bit yesterday. And they make a valiant return to try and come back in the game, and they fall short. I mean, it's just the same old thing. It's like they're in this funk, and you seem to like Terry Collins. I give him credit for working with a young team and keeping them together, but I also have to put some I got to put some value in the fact that the other teams just didn't have numbers on a lot of the players on the Mets. Neither did we. I mean, when this season started, I didn't even know half the team. I'm just starting to get to know them. And, I think it's the same for the other teams that they face. They didn't have any statistics outside of the minor leagues. They were all young players. The minor league stats mean nothing, so they don't know the styles of these guys. It takes a couple of games. It takes a few at bats to get to know these players. And now I think that the surprise factor is over, and I think that the smoke and mirrors that we were all fooled by, me included. I started pounding my chest too about being a Mets fan. I think that we're seeing the real Mets, and we're seeing them when they play a quality team, fold. And one last thing, I agree with you about bullpen help, but when your starter can't even go 7-8 innings, Mike, I mean, we were both talking about that last week. I mean, the Mets literally jump for joy if they get 6 solid innings out of a pitcher, and that's BS, man.
Well, especially with Santana, because there's concern right now. His last 3 starts, he's given up at least 6 runs each game, so there is concern. He's coming off major surgery, so there's a risk. there's an obvious risk with Santana. As far as the other starters, Dickey, he's not going to match the first half of the season and win another 12 games. He's not going to be 24-2. You're hoping for 18 games. Look, as the season gets progresses, people get tired, especially a guy like Santana, who you don't know how the surgery is going to hold up. So, his ERA is 6.54 in his last starts since his no-hitter, and his first 11 starts, it was a 2.49. It's almost triple. So there's definitely a problem there. But the biggest problem, Billy, is, like we said, it's definitely the bullpen, and that's where you got to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. If Sandy Olson said he's not going to get a starting pitcher, he's not going to get a right-handed bat, you got to start somewhere, and you got to get some bullpen help. A couple of guys you can throw in there. You definitely need a closer. We don't know when Frank Francisco is coming back. I mean, he was doing okay. He wasn't lights out, but that's the role that he was comfortable in. So you have to start somewhere, and I think that's where Sandy's going to go and go out there and try to get some kind of bullpen help. Now, the other thing is, will he be able to play in New York? That's always been a big question. You bring guys here, whether they're low profile or high profile guys. You play in New York, it's just a different mindset. So, it's very frustrating. I really was holding out hope after the All-Star break. I didn't want to see this. I was hoping for a 500 record against the Braves and the Nationals, and I got 1-5 against them. So we'll see, Billy. I mean, it's just a wait and see game. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. We both said in the beginning of the season we didn't even think they'd be playing this well, but they are. And you got to hope that this 4-year plan that he has with these pitchers in the minor league, Harvey and Wheeler, work out. I mean, we're going to see Harvey before the end of the year. That's no doubt about that.
Well, Harvey's a guy that listen. You don't want to spend any money if Sandy doesn't want to open up the checkbook, or he's not allowed to open up the checkbook, whatever the case is. Then it's time to make the move. And that's one thing I do agree with Terry Collins about. He said it 2 weeks ago. He said it again last week. He says, if this kid is ready, bring him up. Let's do it. The knock on Harvey was that he's a one-dimensional pitcher. All he's really got is a fastball, although he can pitch in the high 90s, even hit triple digits. His location is good. But, as we talked about last week, every Major League Baseball player is going to be able to hit a fastball. They're trying to develop another pitch or two for him, working on his change. But the thing is this: if the Mets are going to make a run, if they realize that it was smoke and mirrors, and they're sticking to the plan that you alluded to, then it's still time to bring up the young kids. Because now's the time. If you're sticking to a long-term plan, now's the time. Do you take a guy and try and get? If you go to the other side of the coin, do you take a guy like a David Wright and try and get rid of him? I'm not saying he's not an important part of the team. I'm not saying he's a pillar of that team. I'm not saying that he's responsible for the early success for this team. But he's your only marketable guy unless you want to give up a lot of your young players, which is a stupid mistake because, if they do have, the one thing that's been kind of obvious over the last couple of years is that the Mets farm system is replenished. They had destroyed that farm system a few years back, and a system that was always known for good pitching and quality young players, that they were able to use in trades and stuff. They at some point in time they abused their farm system and they gave up a lot of their young talent for players that didn't pan out. Now's the time to make the about face. Maybe it's a time to if you're saying that they're strapped financially still and they don't want to spend the money, they want to wait till next year, whatever the case may be. Okay, then let's get the young kids out, in terms of pitching. Let's get them out there. You said last week yourself that you're not feeling all warm and fuzzy about Batista starting, and your fear is coming true. He's starting today. It's an important game. They all of them are afraid to use the words must win, and we know that, let's face it, if they want to make a run, which they're still in a position to do, if they want to make a run, they're in must-win games, and they have to beat the good teams. And the Dodgers, who they're looking at as being not that great of a team, is a decent team, so they should be beating this team, Mikey.
No, the Dodgers they're a second-place team. They're not a bad team at all. They got Kemp back, which is definitely going to bolster that lineup a lot. Yeah, you know what, Billy? I'm all about bringing up the young guys and trying them. I said last week that, why not bring up Matt Harvey? And if he gets knocked around, so what? Nobody comes into the major leagues and is an all-star right off the bat. I mean, it takes time. There are things you have to learn in the major leagues that you learn in the minors, and if you're not, you don't get that chance. It's stupid to keep them down there. But no, I agree, man. I think that you're only 4.5 games out of the wild card. Give these guys a shot. But then again, on the other hand, if they do bring these guys up, you can't complain that they didn't give them the shot and they should have went out and spent money, because that's not their long-term plan. This is their plan right now is to keep developing their farm system and to not go out and get these high-profile agents.
Right, because I think all they need to do is take a look at Jason Bay, and the other day we were talking about Jason Bay, and again, I was bashing Collins, and you were like, yeah, well, here's a guy that took a $40 million player and benched him, and made the right move, and to me, if you're a good manager, once the player signs his financial deal, you got to make decisions based on statistics, and that was a no-brain decision to put in a guy that was hot, and we all saw what happened, so and I don't know why they have this. I know why. It's about the $67 million he got,
yeah,
but
exactly.
But that's ridiculous. I mean, when does that become secondary when winning and losing is really the priority here? I mean, no matter how you slice it, it has to be, you can't toss in the towel for this season yet, can you? I'm a negative Mets fan, okay, but do I really believe that they should toss in the towel and look ahead to next year now, when they're still alive, so to speak? Yeah, they're 8 games out of first, but they're still alive in the wild card. I mean, you said yourself, once a playoff start, it's a new season. Yeah,
but Terry Collins did exactly what you wanted him to do, and he benched a $66 million player, and he put in Valdespin, and Valdespin, came through. So he's doing that. But what more can the guy do? I mean, when it comes to hitting, this team is fine. I mean, they're not the powerhouse Yankees where they're hitting home runs left and right, but they're a young, gritty, scrappy team. They play well for Terry Collins. Like I said, I keep alluding to it. The problem is the bullpen. Yeah. And you said, but he micromanages the bullpen. But you know what? In that situation, what he has, you have to micromanage. It's a crapshoot. You don't know what's going to come up. You throw 7, 11, you throw craps. You don't know what's going to come up. So he's doing what he can, and he's not worrying about contracts. We see that. He's going to play who he thinks gives him the best opportunity to win, where most managers, as you know, especially the Yankees, they don't do that. They play their contract players. So I think he's doing a great job. I think, look, I'll even go as far as say he's like in the running for manager of the year as of now. I mean, I know you disagree with that, but I'm not saying he's the favorite. I think Clint Hurdle's the favorite, but he's definitely in the running.
Well, you know what? If the Mets get deep into the playoffs or something, I can agree with. Listen, when I say micromanage, and I'm wrong. I shouldn't be so critical of Terry Collins. I'm just pissed off about just how the Mets are falling apart, and I just it's just the same old thing for me. But what I meant last week about what my comments were about him with his bullpen is that he doesn't abandon them quick enough. I know that micromanaging sometimes is righty lefty up, so switch this guy, switch that guy. I know that gets cumbersome at times. But what one of his biggest issues that I have with him is that you see a pitcher, you're supposed to know your pitchers, and the guy starts giving up hits. It's like he's throwing batting practice. Why stay with the guy? Don't you think it's time to make the move then?
It depends. Are you talking about a starter or are you talking about a relief pitcher?
Well, both, because he does the same mistake for both. I mean, a relief pitcher, it seems that he's ready to pull the plug a little quicker, but the starters, forget about it. I mean, we talked about Guy last week. You look at pitchers that have been pitching for him, and they're doing great. I know it contradicts our dream that a Major League Baseball pitcher right now should be able to go 7-8 innings without jumping for joy if he gets through 5.5 or 6. But still, when he starts to see them falter, without being so hung up on a pitch count, you got to make the move then, don't you?
When it comes to starting pitching, our starting pitching is so much stronger than the relief pitching. I think he'll give them more of an opportunity, and he'll hope that they work themselves out of a jam. As far as the relief pitching, we're terrible. We're the worst in the National League with a 5 ERA. So he's more apt to pull the trigger, so to speak, with the relief pitching. I can't blame him. I can't. And then let me ask you this, okay? He keeps a guy in. He keeps him and the guy, he doesn't pull him right away. Are you going to get pissed off that he didn't pull him? I mean, I know you. You either way, the guy gets hit, or if he pulls him out and he puts in another pitcher and the pitcher gets hit, either way you're going to get upset, Billy.
Well, yeah, of course I'm going to get upset, I mean, unless the guy, fans decide and, you give him. But the truth of the matter is, what seems to happen with the Mets, and not just the Mets, any baseball team for that matter, you're relying on your pitcher. Your pitcher's pitching solid, right? And then all of a sudden, everything falls apart. So you make a move. Then what's been happening with the Mets is not only does the pitcher start struggling, but now we start making these bonehead, defensive plays that, mess ups here and there that add to the nauseating performance. And then you make a move and you're getting a guy that's either too cold or maybe he's pitched a little too much. I agree with you, man. It all boils down to the bullpen. And then it goes back. Maybe it's not Terry Collins. Maybe it's Sandy. Maybe Sandy, or maybe it's the owners not letting Sandy do what he needs to do. But the guy has to deviate from thinking for next year. Hey, I just went over our break, man. We got to take a short break. We'll be back. I got a question about some hockey news for you, and we got some Jet talk coming up, and also I got some boxing stuff all coming up in about 2.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Rosselli Enterprises. Rosselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Rosselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RosselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IDO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IDO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOboxing.com.
Across the alleyway, up on the boulevard like a zip gun on parade. Lights on the silhouette, he's just a buttonette, coming at you on the count of 1.
And we're back. You're listening to Talkin' New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike. And Brooklyn Mike is on the line right now, and we're talking, well, I guess it's not really a line, but we're talking about Mets. We're still both crying profusely over the Mets falling apart. And it seems, which makes this even worse, Mikey, is that the Yankees, on the other hand, just, they're methodically going through, like the Gas House Gorillas on the old Bugs Bunny, they're just slamming people around. And even being a Yankees fan, you lose 2 in a row. It means nothing. It means nothing. And the Mets, on the other hand, you drop a couple of games and the season's over.
Well, yeah, the Mets, you drop a couple of games, the season's over because they don't have the depth that the Yankees have.
Right.
So, I mean, look, when you have unlimited funds, that's what you get. You get a team that's going to contend, and like you say, they're built for the playoffs, and they are. Doesn't guarantee a World Series victory, but they can go out and get whoever they want. I mean, how do you like the dilemma of should I go out and get Shane Victorino, or should I keep what I have now? I'm 8 games in first place. My staff is getting healthier. I have bench players that are giving me 24 home runs and 62 RBIs. So I mean, how would you like to have that dilemma? I know I would, but we don't. And with I look at it this way: with the Mets, I find every game is like a football game, meaning there are 16 regular season games, and every one of them means something. You can't lose 2 or 3 in a row because you start getting nervous, and there goes the season. Well, even though there's 162 games in a baseball season, with the Mets, we want to win every game or as many as possible because this is the feeling we get. It almost feels every year like a shortened season.
Yeah, well, when you're playing 2 seasons, basically 2 different teams, and then, I mean, my interest level was at the lowest it ever was at the beginning of the season. I figured that the Mets didn't have a chance. Then all of a sudden, they started playing good, and I fell in love with this team. Talk about an amazing Mets team. I mean, that's exactly what they started making me feel about, and now, just when they got me all jacked up, I'm like same old Mets, But you do have me. I am going to admit that you're right about Terry Collins. I'm a little too much on him, but unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I got a quick question for you. I want to talk a little football here in a minute. But first and foremost, the NHL. And the players are like getting ready to do, possibly go through a strike and stuff. And I ask you this, I mean, I'm not a huge hockey fan or anything like that, but, the NFL was successful, getting the players. I mean, they had the juice, and the interest and the money involved with the networks and the fan base and the aftermarket monies that are brought in. Not that the NHL doesn't do that and everything else, but I clearly don't think. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm trying to get your thoughts on it. I clearly don't think that the NHL and its players have the juice that the NFL does, and I think it would be a huge mistake for arguably out of the four major sports, for the fourth one, number 4, to even risk a little bit of their fan base. What do you think?
Well, of course, the NFL is the powerhouse of all the unions, as far as revenue. But I look at it this way, the NHL is still making money, and every player wants a piece of the pie. So I mean, I don't think that they're asking for anything outrageous. They want to increase player share, which makes sense to me. If the NHL was showing negative numbers, which they're not. I mean, they're not making the NFL dollars, but they are positive numbers, and these guys deserve an increase in pay, just like the guy who cleans the streets of the street in Manhattan. Everybody gets a raise, and everybody they have to look out for each other. I don't think that with risk comes rewards. So I think it's I have no problem with them trying to seek out better deals for their players. I don't think it's going to at the fan base it's so limited, it's so defined that they're going to come back. It's not like you have to risk losing new fans, because if you're either an NHL fan, you watch the game or you don't. So I think the fans that of the NHL, they're hardcore fans. So whether or not there's a lockout and they lose the whole entire season, they come back next year, those guys are going to be watching again. So it's not like they're worried about the average Joe fan. These guys.
Well, we just lost you, Mike. We're going to have to get Mikey back here. We had some kind of a glitch just took place. So I'm gonna see if I can't get Mikey back. But we'll be with that in a second. I just don't think that the NHL is as strong as the NFL by any means. I just don't think that they are. And we'll have to wait and see how they make out and all that happy stuff, because the thing is that when they in my opinion anyway, when they want to try and strike or something like that, I just don't think that it's as strong. I mean, that's it. Are you back?
I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened. We just had some kind of a glitch here. I think I'll tell you what happened. We dropped you. That's what it was. But anyway, I was just saying as I was stumbling around trying to find what happened to my man Mikey, that the NHL just doesn't have, in my opinion anyway, just doesn't have the juice that the NFL has, of course. But let's shift gears here for a second before we get totally into the NFL, which I'm chomping at the bit to talk a little football. There was a couple of things that took place this week in the boxing world, and one is directly New York related that I want to get to. But first, did you catch the story, Mike, about the boxer in Michigan? His name was Martin Tucker, who apparently was involved in some kind of a bank robbery back in 2009. That they were able to obtain a blood-soaked cotton swab from a fight that he had that had the DNA that pretty much put him in jail. Did you catch that story with the FBI, like a CSI episode?
Oh, no, I did not. So he was exonerated? Is that what happened?
No, it's the other way around. Apparently, in 2009, here's a guy, he's a marginal boxer, and he works as a construction guy, and he boxes part-time. And apparently in 2009, he's allegedly was part of a bank robbery that took place, and he wore a mask, and he drove the getaway car and all of this stuff, and the FBI, because it was a bank, was on this case. So they were, they claimed they had enough evidence to lock him up anyway. But one of the guys went up on the internet, found that his name is Martin Tucker, found that Tucker was fighting right near where he was, and then went to the fights, didn't mention how he got the cotton swab, and you know how boxers are, they bleed a little bit, and he grabbed the cotton swab, put it in a Ziploc bag, took it to the lab, they did the old CSI test, and guess what? The DNA matched what they had, they put him at the scene, and they arrested him. He's sitting in jail right now with no bail.
Oh, good. He got what he deserved then.
Right.
That's great.
I mean, science, you just can't beat anymore, I didn't do it, doesn't cut it anymore, right?
No, DNA is the end-all of end-alls, A DNA sample, it tells a lot of things. So there's no way to fight that, especially like, you're trying to find out if you're the father of a baby. It doesn't matter. DNA is so powerful nowadays, which we, like you said, we didn't have that years ago. So years ago it was all based on, eyewitnesses or fingerprints, and, you can get away with that. But comes to DNA sample, you're done.
No doubt about that. One other thing, there's a fighter. Well, I didn't get to the New York part yet, but I just wanted to mention there's a fighter. Her name is Mariana Juarez, and her nickname is La Barbie. And I found it interesting because I had a couple of daughters. I have a couple of daughters, and when they were growing up, not that I lost them anyways, but when they were growing up, one thing that was always common in the house was that I'd always see these naked Barbies around, they're changing their Barbie dolls, and all of this stuff. And, with two girls, you end up with, 30, 40 Barbies all around. And many of them were always naked, And it was brought up to the news that Mariana Juarez, who's a world champion fighter, just signed a deal, and she's going to be, naked La Barbie. She's posing for Playboy. What's your thoughts?
Oh, really? Now, didn't we have another... St. John, was it her name?
Yeah, Mia St. John, but that was like 20 years ago.
That's right. Didn't she pose as well, or she was a pinup or something like that?
Yes, she was. Yeah. But it was before, and now you look at Mia St. John, and she could use a good plastic surgeon, in my opinion.
That's not nice.
No, I know, but I never claimed to be nice. But anyway, I figured I'd give you that little tidbit. Now, on to some New York news, which has got me really excited now, in boxing. Ken Hirschman used to be in charge of Showtime. And when Ken Hirschman was there, a lot of us, and I know you're one of these guys, a boxing fan that enjoys watching the fights that generally come on Showtime because of the competitive nature, and the matches are always good ones, And one of the knocks on HBO was the complete opposite. They were more corporate based, and their matchups were, you kind of knew who was going to win and all that stuff. Well, it turned out that last year Ken Hirschman signed a deal, left Showtime, and is now the big wig over at HBO. But here we are at the end of July, and so far with all the fights that we've seen on HBO, none have really been what I call Ken Hirschman-like, okay? They just announced this week that they're going to have a triple header on HBO, Mike, and there's a New York connection to it, all right? There's a New York connection to it, and that connection is Lou DiBella, who's stationed. Mike, we got some bad stuff going on right now. I can't. All right, it's okay now, but Lou DiBella is stationed in New York, and Joe DeGuardia, he too is in the Bronx, New York, and both of these guys have a couple of fighters on the card, and it's a triple header coming at us from Foxwoods in Connecticut. And Lou DiBella's fighter is Edwin La Bamba Rodriguez, and he's going up against Joe DeGuardia's fighter, who's Jason Escalera. That's the main event. The co-main event is Zolt Erdai against a kid from Newburgh, New York, Luis DeValle. And Zolt Erdai is going up against Isaac Chilimba. And then a kid from Newburgh, Luis DeValle, he's going up against Vic Darchidian in what I think is going to be the first fight that clearly has the stamp of Ken Hirschman. What's your thoughts, man?
Oh, I'm glad the two promoters are getting together and doing this. That's one thing, because as you know, there's so much bickering in between promoters that there are fights that we should see that we don't. So yeah, I'm actually excited about that, and especially I'm a big Dick Darchinyan fan. He's not the most technically sound fighter, but he's exciting to watch, and I think that's going to be a heck of a matchup.
Yeah, it's a clear, that particular matchup is a clear youth versus age matchup. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. We both love talking football, and a couple of things. First, outside of the New York Jets, let's talk a little. Last week, I didn't get a chance to talk about the signing of Drew Brees. He signed actually the richest quarterback contract in the history of the game. What I like about this contract is he's guaranteed a big chunk of this money this year. And in addition to that, I think he is the franchise. But $60 million is a hell of a lot of money. I mean, is he worth it?
Well, the $60 million is guaranteed for the first 3 years, so it's $20 million a year. He's also been the healthiest quarterback over the course of the last 5-6 years. So it's not like he's going to get hurt and then they're going to lose $100 million. He's definitely worth it. I mean, since 2006, he's been probably the best quarterback in the NFL. He's thrown for the most yards in any season last year, breaking the NFL record of 5,476 yards. I mean, who's been a more accurate quarterback than Drew Brees? I mean, Drew Brees just doesn't hit open receivers. He hits tiny little spots in their body. I mean, who else is worth that kind of money besides Drew Brees? And like you said, he is the face of the franchise. He lives in New Orleans. He, that is his town. He didn't want to leave. I think they got a bargain at $100 million. The guy is he's just a stand-up player. He doesn't have any kind of baggage or issues like we see with a lot of NFL players. I think he's worth every penny.
Yeah. Now I think I'm listening. Now it sounds like Dax is on the line. He's busting our chops in here in the chat room because he was on the show the other day, and he had the sound on the chat room. So every time you put an entry in, it goes ding ding. You got to turn that off. But and Dax was he's making fun of us. Thanks, Dax, for all your support, my man. But it just seems like such an outrageous amount of money. But for anybody that doesn't know, and I'm assuming that most people listening are hardcore sports fans outside of the sport of boxing, football is the only sport that contracts aren't guaranteed. That's why the big emphasis when these big dollar players sign their contract that they get their guaranteed money, their upfront money. Because in football, unlike baseball, they sign somebody to a contract, $100 million in baseball, and the very first pitch, he throws his arm out. Well, he's guaranteed he's going to get all his money. Football is not the case. They could cut you and you don't get nothing. So I agree in a sense that when you look at the individual, Mike, in Drew Brees' case, plus what he's done for not only the team, New Orleans Saints, but also the whole city of New Orleans, he clearly is worth the money. But what does this do to the rest of the league? Doesn't this set a precedent now for the top quarterbacks of the league and the top guys on their teams? Aren't they going to be looking for now what they're going to call Drew Brees money?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're a quarterback that deserves Drew Brees money, yeah, you're going to be asking for that. I mean, but what does Peyton Manning make? 18, 19 million?
How can he live on that? How can he live? How can Peyton Manning live on that kind of money? And I know he's got to struggle and do commercials and stuff like that to make a few extra bucks on the side. But how can Peyton live on $18 million, Mikey?
He cuts coupons.
Yeah, he cuts coupons. Oh God, that kills me.
Listen, let me ask you this question. I'll just throw this out at you. If Drew Brees went down tomorrow with a career-ending injury, is he worth $60 million for what he's brought into that team, to that stadium, to that city?
Are you asking me, is he worth $60 million for what he's already brought? Or
yes. Yes.
But he should have already gotten that money. They got him as a, you know what I'm saying? So that's a trick question. It's a trick question because the truth of the matter is yes, he's the city should be paying him that $60 million. The fans should be paying him that $60 million. Yes, he's worth it. He brought a Super Bowl to that team. I mean, that team was a losing team for almost as long as the Jets, yes, he's worth it in that respect. But if he went down tomorrow, if he went down in preseason, and could not play this year or play next year, and that's a whole nother ball game. You're talking about all of the suspensions handed. No, this isn't talking New Orleans sports, but still, you talk about what's going on with that team. The coach isn't allowed to coach on the team this year. The defensive guy, I think, was banned for life. And Jonathan Vilma still got his case going on. He's an ex-Jet. He's got a restraining order against him and Goodell. I mean, it's pretty bad over there.
No, there's no doubt it's bad over there. It's these punishments that Goodell gave out, it just it's going to ruin the team for at least 1 year. There's no doubt about that. It's like who's coaching this week kind of thing. But getting back to Drew Brees, for what the guy has done, and for what he's going to continue to do, I think he's worth everything. And when's the last time you saw a quarterback, go down with a career-ending injury? I mean, it doesn't happen. I mean, people get injured, but not career-ending. So, I mean, he's going to live out this contract. It's 5 years, $100 million. And when you first come into the league, you're not making, crazy money. And you're not making guaranteed money like he just made. So he's getting paid for, what he has done and what he's going to continue to do. And when it comes to contracts in the NFL, I don't begrudge them anything because, like you said, they're not guaranteed. Whereas baseball, you break a fingernail and you're still getting paid. So I don't begrudge NFL players anything they get, and I wish they had guaranteed contracts because Billy, as you know, when these guys retire, I mean they're half crippled, man. I mean they can't move, they can't. It's hard for them to walk between the knee replacements, the hip replacements. What kind of life is that? Now, no one twisted their arm to tell them to be an NFL player, but you compare them to the baseball players. I mean, baseball players are prima donnas in my mind.
Well, unless you're tough as nails and you're getting popped for stealing merchandise and exposing yourself on Craigslist, and I'm referring to Lenny Dykstra. But, RG3 signed with the Redskins that he was holding out. He got his $20 million plus deal. The one thing that irks me really, Mike, is the rookies that come into the NFL that hold out for these kinds of dollars, especially when that jump from the NFL, from college football, even an elite guy like he is, to the NFL is not a layup, and we've seen it a lot of times where very successful players in college just don't do as well in the NFL. The NFL is a little fast, especially with quarterbacks. The NFL is so much quicker. The talent level is eons above what they're used to facing, and for them to demand this kind of money is ridiculous. Now, the Washington happens to have it. But still, I know they've tried to make some strides with rookies, and unless you're a number one pick, you're a little capped out right now. But even so, I mean, doesn't it seem a little outrageous to you? 21 point something million for a rookie quarterback?
Well, yeah, I mean, it does. But yeah, like you just said though, they have made strides. I mean, you're never going to see a Sam Bradford kind of contract again. Sam Bradford, the quarterback for the St. Louis Rams. When he came out, he made over $50 million. So now with the new CBA that the NFL has, they're allotted only a certain amount of money to give to rookies. So if they draft 6 rookies, let's say the money that's allotted to them is $30 million, they have to divide that up amongst those players. So $20 million compared to what Bradford got was like $50 million. It's a spit in the bucket. It's nothing. But here's the thing, Billy, is that what do you do? Do you say, okay, we'll give you $1 million for your first year? He goes out, in the sixth game, he breaks a leg or whatever, and he's never the same again. You got to give these guys something. And he's a highly touted player. He's going to do well. He's going to do well. And he was drafted second?
Yeah, but you don't know. You really don't know if he's going to do well. That's my point. But I understand your point about the money and the injury, and that's the problem with the NFL, and that's why the NFL's the best, really, because their salary cap is structured where it actually works. We see competitive teams, a team that wins a Super Bowl versus a team that wins 3 games is only off by a player or two. The continuity is there. They can be that team that loses almost all the games, loses tough ones. Loses at the last second field goal. and that's what I love about the salary cap and how it's structured and everything else. It's just that. That move, move from college to the pros, it's just so uncertain. And yes, in a case like RG3, you got a guy that if anybody's going to make it, he is. But you also got to keep in mind that traditionally that style quarterback, it's 50-50 whether they make it. The Bradford players that you mentioned and a different style guy, more of an NFL style quarterback. And
okay, 1 second. Let me address that real quick. Number one, RG3, he has blazing speed. He has sprinter speed.
So does Michael Vick.
However, he does not rely on that. He is a pocket passer. People think right away because he has that blazing speed that he is Michael Vick. He is light years ahead of Michael Vick.
Well, he's big,
I'm
too.
going on record saying that right now. He will be light years ahead of Michael Vick as a pure pocket passer. There's no doubt about that. And as far as his contract, I'm looking at it right now. It's 4 years, $21 million, where Bradford got over $50 million. So, that's a $30 million savings. You have to give these guys something.
No, you're right.
The deal with RG3, which is a little unusual, is that the $21 million is guaranteed. So, he's not Ryan Leaf. I don't think he's going to turn out to be Ryan Leaf. But, is there a risk involved? Yeah, but they're saving $30 million. If they didn't correct the CBA and the veteran players that are in the league crying that, hey, you're giving all these rookies crazy contracts, they have improved the thing. I agree with that 110%. But the NFL did do something about it. And his contract, like I said, $21 million compared to Bradford's $50+ million, that's a significant amount of money. It's not like it went down to 40 or 30. It went down to 21. He's going to be a good pocket passer. I think with the blazing speed, that just adds something to it. He's not going to rely on it. It's not going to be Michael Vick. You mark my words. This guy and the kid Long from Andrew Luck, from Indianapolis, they're going to be neck and neck as far as talent. They're going to be compared from now until they end their careers on who should have been drafted number 1 and who should have been drafted number 2.
Well, I got news for you. I like RG3 better. I think Andrew Luck is with an organization that needs more time to build their team around him than the Redskins do. I think the Redskins had some of the pieces of the puzzle in place for a quarterback like Griffin, and I think that they're going to be better off quicker. Now, long term, I don't know, but quicker, I think they're going to be better off. Hey, listen, we got to take a break. And then when we come back, we'll be talking about some Jet talk, something that listen, let me just say to all the Giants fans, there's not much I could say about the Giants. They're being very quiet in the offseason. They're the Super Bowl champs. We gave them the credit that they deserve. They're a solid team. There's just not much to talk about. But there is a lot to talk about with the Jets. They got a lot of turmoil going on. And one last thing, Mikey, I wanted to add about Griffin is that, he's bigger than Vic. I know I compared him to Vic, but he's a bigger guy than Vic, a bigger version of Vic, which I think is going to give him the ability to stand in the pocket, like you alluded to, something that Vic, because of his lack of size, it's almost like he's got to roll around and run just to see his receivers.
Yeah, Vic's only, 6 feet tall, so the height is definitely going to help RG in the pocket. But he's made for that. He wants to be a pocket. He is a pocket passer. There's no doubt about it. That added speed is just an added weapon that he will have in his back pocket if need be. But it's not going to be. You're not going to see him, work like Michael Vick does. There's no doubt about it.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with some New York Jet talk in about 2.
If you want your voice heard on Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., then call our hotline at 845-228-8710. Leave a voicemail, or you could just tell Billy C. that you like his mustache.
Should I ask you your opinion about this idea?
I'm just trying to give you the encouragement.
Listen, all I need from you is to make sure you don't hang up on people.
And if we like your call, we'll play it back on the air.
You have the knowledge and wisdom of boxing because of what you do and how well you do it.
Leave your name, hometown, and what you think of the show. 845-228-8710. We want to hear you. Talking Boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
There are very few young American fighters being built up into future stars and getting the attention of the networks, etc. And also building personalities again. And this goes not only, I'm not pointing fingers at the networks, I'm also pointing fingers at the promoters. And really, other than Floyd Mayweather, who's out there that has a persona? You have Mayweather, you have De La Hoya. Everybody else, it's a boxing match.
Talking Boxing
with Billy C. Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretch of that man, I
would think. You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. from upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Sweet Susie Q, she was a rebel, no angel wings, more like the devil. She was so hot, so cool and nasty, believe it or not, here's what she asked me, if you need love with no condition.
And we're back. You're listening to Talkin' New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike, and we're getting ready to finally talk about some Jet talk, Mikey, and I want to kick it off with Darrelle Revis. He's gracing the team with his presence for the minicamp, which is scheduled to start on Thursday. And I just don't get this. I just don't get Revis. He's got a contract in place. I talk about this on the other show all the time about contracts and. A player fights and holds out. He held out 2 years of his 3 years with the Jets so far, and he got the money he wanted. He put his name on the paper. Now he wants it reworked. I don't get it, man. What's the problem?
Greed. That's what it boils down to. It's greed. And he was quoted last year, whatever, when he held out. He said, I have to feed my family. Who's your family? Africa?
What's he feeding them?
Feeding them. Come on. There are a lot of people out there on food stamps, and they're able to feed their family. So you don't say that because you really throw off your fan base when you make stupid comments like that. As far as his contract now, he re-signs for a 4-year, $46 million contract, and if you remember, it was front-loaded, meaning he's collected over $30 million of that 46 in the front half of the contract.
First 2 years.
Right. So now that the back end of his contract has him getting about $7 or $8 million a year, now he's complaining again. He wanted 15 for every year, okay? But they boatloaded the front half of the contract. They gave him. He signed it. Okay. According to the latest reports, he's gonna report to camp. I think his PR people sat down with him and said, "Look, you can't hold out 3 times. You held out as a rookie. You held out 2 years later, and now you want to hold out another 2 years after that? I mean, he's made money, and he was paid like he was a top cornerback in the league. You know, you break it down. You know, the $46 million. It's $11-12 million a year. I mean, come on now. So, like I said, the latest reports is that he's going to report to camp, and he's got 2 years left on his contract. We'll see where that goes. But, let his agent negotiate behind the scenes, to make him a Jet for life. That's fine. But you know what? You better report to camp come Thursday.
Yeah, you know why? There's the Jets. The Jets have been. People could say a lot of negative stuff about the Jets, and they certainly do. But, when it comes to contracts, the Jets a lot of times have been pretty slick with their contracts. And I don't know if you realize this, but in his contract, if he does decide to hold out while this contract is still in place, there's a clause in there that automatically extends the current contract by 3 years with the same deal in place. So if he did decide to hold out and not report to camp, he's not looking at another year left on a contract. He's looking at 4, so, and he wouldn't get the extra money. So, I think the Jets did a good move there. And of course, Revis is doing a good move, by reporting. And like you said, if he wants to work it out, so he's happy at least. But I think some of the problem with Revis, really stems from Rex Ryan, because, he put this guy on a pedestal, long before he signed his contract, and then, Revis Island, all of this stuff. I mean, it's clear that the guy started reading his own press clippings, and quite honestly, when you hold out for training camp and you don't get into that what they call football shape, he had a couple of nagging injuries. He just wasn't the same Revis last year. Now receivers are actually getting the better of him. I can't stand when they put him on a pedestal.
No, neither can I. And he did have that hamstring injury last year, and as you know as well as anybody else, when you have a hamstring injury, that really never goes away. It's always there, and it can get tweaked at any time. So yeah, did he take a step back? Yeah, a little bit, not a lot though, not a lot, because he shut down some great receivers, and the thing about Darrell is that he takes that great receiver away. You don't have to worry about that because we don't have a pure pass rusher. So we're, with our defense, we're doing everything with smoke and mirrors. We're changing our look. We're blitzing. We're faking the blitz or whatever. So having him shut down that cornerback, that top receiver is huge. But yeah, he's taken. I have to agree with you. He has taken a slight step back, and that is due to that hamstring injury. But Billy, why did he get the hamstring injury? It's because he didn't report to camp.
Exactly.
He wasn't in football shape, so he did it to himself.
And also because he wears a Jet uniform, because there hasn't been any other team in the history of the NFL that gets more hamstring and freak injuries like that than the New York Jets. And speaking of New York Jets, Santiago Holmes. I mean, this guy, he's already starting some BS. And it was reported earlier in the week that he was on NFL Network and he was doing an interview, and he came right out and said, I don't think the 2-quarterback system will work. He says it will not work for this team. It will not work in the NFL, and there's been no team that can win a Super Bowl with that. What's your thoughts on Santiago Holmes being Santiago Holmes?
Oh, Santonio, not Santiago.
Oh, I'm sorry, Santonio.
But Santonio Holmes, look, he is who he is. He's a mouth. He's a big mouth. And that's why they took away his captain status, because he's just he has to learn to be quiet. But he hasn't learned that yet. But in regards to what he has said, I agree that the 2-quarterback system is not going to work. And I like the fact that, believe it or not, I like the fact that he was honest about it. He also went on record by saying that Sanchez is the starting quarterback. He's the man. But you say that because look who the backup is. The backup is a guy who can't hit the broadside of a barn. So even though Sanchez is a below average passer at 56%, what's Holmes' alternative? A guy who's passer completion is 46%. So, I mean, he didn't say anything that shocked me. He didn't say anything that, if you would have brought Peyton Manning in here, do you think he would have said Sanchez is my starting quarterback? No. He wants somebody who can get him the ball. And his better option right now is Mark Sanchez.
Speaking of Tim Tebow, and of course, you didn't want him here. You didn't want him here. And I didn't even think anything of it. But the more I read into this, and there was a big, as a matter of fact, in today's paper, there was a big story about Tebow and how much of it's an intrigue and mystery, and he's the least kept secret in football and all this stuff. The more I think about this, Mike, and the more we've talked about it, both on and off the air, do you think it would be a smarter move? I mean, they're comparing him, in a recent article that I read, they compared him to a better version of Brad Smith. Now, Brad Smith was a guy that I cringed when they got rid of him, and he's now playing for the Buffalo Bills, a New York team, actually the only New York team that actually plays in New York, but that's a whole nother story. But in the state of New York, so don't anybody from Manhattan send me nasty emails. And speaking of emails, you send us an email at NewYorkSports@BillyCBoxing.com, and we'll read them at the beginning of the show, just like we did today. But the thing about Tim Tebow, Mikey, is that I started thinking about the Brad Smith, and I started thinking about they think he's a much better version of Brad Smith, and he's going to be bigger, he's stronger, he can do the same things, he can pass, he can catch, he can hand off, he can block, he can do all these things. They want him on kickoff returns, they want him here, they want him there. Maybe it is better for them to make him the third string quarterback, or even list him as a receiver, and still have that wildcat option, because technically you don't need a quarterback as your wildcat person. I think that logistically they're making a lot of mistakes by naming him as the second string quarterback when they could get away with the same stuff by listing him as something different. Is that because he wants to be listed as a quarterback? What's your thoughts on that whole train of thought?
No, I mean, Billy, he is a quarterback. I mean, he was drafted as a quarterback.
But that doesn't mean anything. So was Brad Smith.
He won 11 games as a quarterback.
But so was Brad Smith. He was a quarterback.
He's not a tight end. He's not a fullback.
He's 250 pounds.
He's
6'4", 250 pounds. When was the last time we saw, aside from Ben Roethlisberger for the Steelers? When else do you see a guy that big that we shouldn't leave? That we could list as something other than a quarterback.
Well, yeah, you're right. But what would make you happy if they listed him as the fullback? He's still going to come in and do the wildcat, no matter. They can list him as a safety. He's still going to do the wildcat,
okay. And
he's going to be in the quarterback position when he does it.
Okay, I'm okay with that. But here's what happens. What happens if he's in there? He's listed as the number 2 quarterback. He goes in as the wildcat. All right. Mark Sanchez goes down. He gets hurt. Mm-hmm. Now what do? We put we make Tim Tebow the behind the center. No more wildcat. Our wildcat, what they're trying to sell us, what Tony Soprano's trying to sell us, is that the wildcat's going to bring this misdirection, this mystery into the game plan and stuff like that, which we all disagree with. But still, that's his delusion. He's got a delusion that people are surprised by the wildcat, which is not the case anymore. Sanchez goes down, he gets hurt in the game, and now they move the number 2 quarterback behind the center. There goes the wildcat. Now you're going to rely on the same guy you're saying, which I agree with, can't hit the side of a barn. He could throw the ball, close his eyes, and whip the ball 90 yards down the field, but he can't complete a screen pass. Now we're in a position where we can't compete, and we got a better quarterback sitting on the sidelines as our third string. That's still not going to be in the game.
Right. Greg McElroy is definitely a better pure passer than Tim Tebow. I mean, Billy C is probably a better pure passer than Tim Tebow. But if let's say Sanchez does go down, and they put in Tebow as the number 2 quarterback, which is what he is right now.
Which they would have to do.
Yeah, but you know what, Billy? They are hell-bent on winning with ground and pound. You can't fool me. You can't fool they can't fool you. Eventually, Tim Tebow is going to start, because if you're going to ground and pound, and if you that's what you have in mind, and you're hell-bent on winning that way, he's the better ground and pound quarterback, because he can move the ball where Sanchez can't. It's nothing but an utter circus, and that's what it's going to be.
But ground and pound with a class of running backs, a group of running backs, the only 2 guys coming back. If you sprinkle in Joe McKnight, you got Sean Green, who you're not that warm and fuzzy about. I happen to like Sean Green, but he's not an every down player. John Connor, who I absolutely love as a fullback, and he's got the hands of stone. Roberto Duran has softer hands than John Connor. All right, Joe McKnight is a midget. Joe McKnight is a little midget that fumbles the ball too much. Okay, then they picked up a guy that I know nothing about, Bilal Powell, who I from what I've read about, he was decent in college. Terrence Ganaway is another running back that they have as listed as a reserve running back, and John Griffin. The 2 guys that were not with the team last year is Ganaway, with Terrence Ganaway and John Griffin. I guess Ganaway was the draft pick, right?
Yeah, Ganaway was from the running back from Baylor, and he's a big physical back. He's like Sean Green. However, mentioning Sean Green, it's been reported that he's actually dropped weight, because the problem with Green is that he's never able to elude that first tackle. And
he doesn't try to. He likes. That's what I like about him. He wears the opponents down. That's why he was so effective in the second half.
Well, I see. I think he's a soft runner. I don't. You compare him to what we had in Thomas Jones. Thomas Jones was light years ahead in my eyes of Sean Green. He's a much harder runner. I don't know why Sean Green's going in this different direction, where he's losing weight, because he's not quick. So you're going to lose the weight, so you're losing that size, and that's what's made you. I mean, he's effective. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's the worst running back in the league. He's effective at what he does, but he's that big physical back, and now he's losing weight. And I'm asking myself, well, why are you losing weight? Because all of a sudden you're going to have moves, like Barry Sanders? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Just like it doesn't make sense that Tebow is putting on 25 pounds from his 230 frame to 250, 255. You scratch your head when you're a Jet fan, man. I mean, some of these decisions that the players and the coaches make, I tell you.
I don't know. I like Sean Green's style. I do. I remember one of my favorite running backs for the Jets was Freeman McNeil, and he had deceiving speed. He wasn't a fast runner. He had better moves than Sean Green. I don't think we need Sean Green to be a speedster. I think we need him to get 4 yards every time he touches the ball. And I think that Sean Green has that potential. He's a guy that when the train gets rolling, he's a lot harder to stop. Yes, he does put his head down. And when I see him in the second half, I see linebackers that are bracing for the impact, and that's what makes Sean Green effective. However, Sean Green needed a guy like Thomas to complement him, to give him a rest here and there, and to beat on that defense just as well, which they do not have anymore. They may have John Connor as a blocker to get that first hit and maybe make an opening, but they didn't get anybody. You can't be a ground and pound offense unless you give those quarterbacks, regardless of who your starter is, the tools in order to make it a ground and pound. And aside from a couple of good running backs, you need different linemen, which they've done nothing with. They've done nothing with that line that we know is suspect. And I get pissed off when I hear people blame Sanchez all the time. Not that I think Sanchez is the greatest quarterback, because I certainly don't. But, you can't blame a guy that has no blocking for him, for God's sakes. You have one or two guys on the line that are solid. You get an injury from one of those guys, and the whole line falls apart. You got no blocking. You have no tools. You have no receivers to throw it to. He's got the guy with the good hands that you can't see because he's a Smurf. The guy with the tall guy, he's got no speed, can't get open. I mean, and then everybody's blaming Sanchez. And you sprinkle in Tim Tebow here. And although I think that he, unlike you, I do think he would be an asset to the team, but not in the capacity as a second-string quarterback. I do believe that they should change his position. I don't give a crap that he was drafted as a quarterback. I don't care that he won 8 games with the Broncos and got him in the playoffs as a quarterback. I don't care about any of that stuff. I look at him now as an individual that weighs 250 pounds, that can catch the ball, that beats on players, that's dedicated to doing, and I quote, and he says it to anyone who will listen, I will do what I'm asked to do to help this team win games. Well, I'm going to ask him, if I'm the coach, to change his position. Does he care? Could he be a receiver? Could he be a running back, for God's sakes? Whatever. Put him in there. That doesn't mean he can't throw the ball. That doesn't mean he can't run the Wildcat. But it certainly opens up our options when it comes to an injury or a benching situation. If Sanchez, if you do decide to bench Sanchez, if they're going to rely on Tim Tebow, and this is where I agree with you 100%, if they're going to rely on him to run that team, they already packed in the season because he can't run the team.
Well, I don't know if he can't run the team. The problem is that he's going to have a difficult time running the team because he's going to keep looking over his shoulder. And he's also going to be thrown out of rhythm because he's going to be pulled out 15, 20 plays a game.
No. I'm talking about Tim Tebow. If Tim Tebow became the quarterback, I'm saying I think that Sanchez should be the quarterback. But what my point was that if Sanchez gets hurt, and now we rely on Tim Tebow, or if they decide to bench Sanchez and they put Tim Tebow in as that starter, which you're fearful of, I'm not so sure he can run that team as a starting quarterback. I don't think he has the tools.
He's going to run that team the way he ran the offense in Denver. He's going to, you're going to see him running the ball a lot. He mentioned before about making him a receiver. Please don't do that. I mean,
tight end.
If anything, let him run the ball, but not receiver.
But I meant as like a Brad Smith. Brad Smith was listed not as a quarterback, but he was listed as a receiver, and they had him listed as an emergency quarterback, which they could do with Tim Tebow. Brad Smith, I thought Brad Smith was effective. He was one of my favorite players. I honestly, and I wasn't kidding, I was sick when they let him go. I thought, and he's not doing as well with Buffalo. He was good on kickoff returns. He was good occasionally as a receiver. He ran the Wildcat well. He could run the ball well. I could see Tim Tebow filling the Brad Smith role as a bigger, stronger version of Brad Smith. Not as fast, but as a bigger, stronger version of Brad Smith.
Do you think Brad Smith would be more effective or Tim Tebow between the two of them?
I liked Brad Smith, but I'm saying with Tim Tebow, you have a guy that could play the role of Brad Smith in an effective way. And in some ways more effective, yes. And more, I do think that Tim Tebow could be more effective because of his running ability, straight up running ability, where Brad Smith was more of a guy that would make you miss a little bit. Tim Tebow's gonna run right over you.
Yeah, but their thought process is to use Tim Tebow, when they get down into the red zone, when they're getting down, close to the goal line. Okay, so you brought him in for that, but we were second in red zone offense last year. Second. So we're not having a problem there. So again, why bring him in? Why is he here? And I disagree is that he can be more effective. I think Brad Smith is more effective because of his speed and his ability to catch the ball, where I haven't seen, Tebow as a receiver. So I don't know if he can catch the ball. But, like I said, getting back to the red zone, it's that, we're successful there. So, it's to me, I don't see it as positive as you that this guy is going to be effective. I think it's just going to be more problems. I would like to see, and you alluded to it, Greg McElroy as the number 2 quarterback, and use Tim Tebow as a fullback. Let's say, if you're going to put 20 more pounds on him, use him as a fullback and don't use him as a quarterback at all.
Right.
But
right. I'm cool with that.
That's the smart thing to do. But with the Jets, we don't do smart things.
No, they don't. They don't do that. But anyway, I can't believe it. It's about that time. And we're going to have to give more time for football talk as the season gets a little closer. We had what we're going to do at the end of every single show is we're going to give you guys a trivia question. And we got some prizes to give away and also a day in this day in New York sports history, a little twist on our normal show. Now, Mikey and I felt that this was a really easy question. Now, nobody's got it right. Now, what I'm going to be doing is keep this question active, Mike, until somebody gets it right. So it's the same trivia question as last week. So anybody that happens to be watching the replay of this show, never assume that somebody's already got the trivia question because it's still available. Now, here it is. The first New York football team to win the Super Bowl was the Jets, Jets. They beat the Baltimore Colts 16-7 in Super Bowl III that took place in 1969. Here's the trivia question. Who was the head coaches of both of the teams? Who was the 2 head coaches? I'll rephrase it so you don't try and I'm not trying to trick you. Who were the 2 coaches for the 2 teams? Who was the coach for the Jets? Who was the coach for the Colts? If you know this answer, what we got on the line right now is a Lynn Swann rookie card for the Pittsburgh Steelers is yours. If you're the first one to get this trivia question right, who was the 2 coaches for the Baltimore Colts and for the New York Jets for Super Bowl III when the Jets won 16-7? Email me your correct answer, New York Sports at BillyCBoxing.com. That's NYSports at BillyCBoxing.com. And our This Day in New York Sports History, which is being brought to us by the Whitehall Athletic Club. Check them out, www.whitehallathletic.club.com. On this day, July 21st, in 1965, Mets right-hander Al Jackson loses his bid for a no-hitter when he got a one-out in the 8th inning single by Willie Stargell. And Jackson did go on to finish the game, something that does not happen today, Mike. He got the W with a 1-0 victory over the Pirates, and it ended up being a 2-hit game for him. That took place on this day in 1965. And on this day in 1996, we got some hockey news. Free agent Wayne Gretzky, who was the leading goal and assist and point scorer in NHL history, signed a 2-year deal with the Rangers, which reunited the Great One with former Edmonton teammate and current Rangers captain at the time, Mark Messier. And that's what happened in New York sports on this day, July 21st in 1965 and in 1996. Appreciate you guys joining us. Mikey, you got any final thoughts?
No, man, just looking forward to next week's show, talking about all things that we couldn't even get in the 2 hours today.
I know, it's unbelievable, but we knew that would happen. And both of us are really excited about this show, and it's going to get better and better and better. And I do want to give everybody a little heads up in case you missed it in the news. The show has already been accepted, and we will be airing live on an AM station. It's a Fox Sports station out of Glens Falls, New York, called WMML on Sundays. So make sure you tune here on Saturday to find out what we're going to talk about on Sunday, because it's going to be the same show. But anyway, Mike, have a great week. I look forward to next week, my man.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later on today.
All right, guys. Make sure you guys tune in next week from 8 to 10 on Saturday morning. We'll see you then. Ciao, baby.